SARSOA'S Calamity, an RPT written audio short story. A tear fell from Elizabeth's eye. She wiped it off her cheek to gain back her composure. "I'm sorry, I can't save him, Sir Volley." Inside the single-room hut held a couple of chairs. Elizabeth stood next to a bed where a red blanket covered a sickly boy. Volley's right hand formed a closed fist. His left hand gripped the hammer from his blacksmith. He sat on the other side of the room next to a table and a bookcase as two candles illuminated the room. "Miss Elizabeth, what do you mean, can't save him? Is this not the best country for your so-called remedies?" Volley brushed his hand through his brown braided beard. He stood from the chair in his charcoal-covered apron. The giant of Voltgar faced Elizabeth. As Volley spoke, Elizabeth nodded her head in acknowledgement. "Brant was fine 2 days ago, until you asked him to fetch your plants." His voice rose in subtle, grim fury. Elizabeth would attempt to reassure Volley that she is doing all that she could, but is outspoken by Volley's rising tone. His hammer slammed the wooden chair as it crumbled into pieces. He demanded Elizabeth to listen. Elizabeth jumped from her feet, raised her hand in front of her, and took 2 steps back from the man walking towards her. A door opened on the other side of the building. An elderly-looking man rushed between Volley and Elizabeth. "That is enough, Volley. You need to calm your anger," declared the old-looking man. "And why should I?" demanded Volley. "My son is dying on that bed, Harold. Look at him. You defend your daughter for her failure to save my son?" Harold vocalized as he defended his daughter's skills as the herbalist. "I'm the village elder. You will listen." Harold took a deep breath and lowered his voice. "Let me talk to her if anything can be done. Go outside and calm down. Brant's still conscious, you know." Volley stared at Harold, then over to his son. Once healthy and strong, Brant's skin was nearly gray. His body lacked any muscle, as his skeleton was visible under the shriveled flab of his skin. Volley walked out of the building and slammed the door shut behind him. Harold sighed in relief. "For Voltgarn, that could have been worse, wouldn't you agree?" He looked back to see Elizabeth drop down on a chair. She took quick, deep breaths as her hands rapidly twitched. She ran her hands through her long, brown hair for comfort. On the table to her left, she reached for a leather book titled Nature's Remedies for the Healing. She skimmed through the pages for an answer she could not find. "This book has to have something, Father. Why can't I find anything? This is my fault. Did I not crush the wild red reeds correctly? I should leave for Ostara. I could pay for some Nazraki vine roots from the Druids. Oh, maybe the blue fern of Ataragon. It says in this book it can cure battle wounds. This might work, it has to." Harold grabbed the book and placed it on the table. He lifted his daughter to her feet and embraced her in his arms. "You did the best you could, my dear angel. But I need you to clear your mind. Tell me what needs to be done." A couple minutes passed for Elizabeth to regain her composure and respond. "I have never seen anything like this. He was well 2 days ago." Elizabeth closed her eyes and uttered the only possible answer. "Father, it pains me to admit it, but he isn't going to make it by tomorrow." Harold nodded. "I will find 2 runners in the morning. They will leave for the Temple of Shen, so his spirit makes it to Ezreal's wardens." "But what if he doesn't go and he comes back to haunt me?" asked Elizabeth. "I will be in the way for you to get away," Harold added, which makes Elizabeth giggle and roll her eyes at her father's recurrent phrase. "But no worries, Volley's intimidating enough to keep him away. It's getting late. We need to go home. Let Volley come in to spend time with his son." Harold released Elizabeth and picked up the broken chair pieces as they exited the building. Small lanterns were lit on the dirt paths to guide people as crickets chirp from a distance and the stars shine above. Vali leaned on an extra fence post used for the renovated horse fence on the northwest side of the village. Elizabeth and Harold departed as Vali entered. No exchange of words to one another. The farming village of SARSOA lies south of Clovora's capital. Harold's first to wake up and be outside in the morning. At sunrise, before any labors are to begin, a prayer is dedicated to Alfred SARSOA, the skilled gardener whom King Charlet the Uniter tasked to care for the royal gardens when crowned 200 years ago. The grave of Sir Alfred was in the center of the village with a tree that overhang. A stone path was created between the memorial garden to lead any who wished to pray. This is the only area deemed as holy ground ratified by the priesthood of Clovora. Harold raised his head from prayer and turned to the Sarsoans. Harold's face was wrinkled. His beard and little hair left on his head was gray. His scraggly body showed more as his tunic and stockings were loose on him. For being in his 40s, the responsibility of being the village elder took a toll on his health. He remained spiritual and kind-hearted, but stern when needed. As he announced the unfortunate news of Brant's passing, he instructed the village to prepare for the ceremony of spiritual passing. Harold elected the two sons of the carpenter as runners to escort the priest of Shen to SARSOA from the capital. 2 days to the temple, 2 days to return. 160 Sarsoans prepared for the ceremony. The farmers gathered the wheat from the fields, picked the vegetables from the ground, and plucked the fruits from the trees. They were sent to the inn located east of the memorial grounds. The Wheat and Ale Inn is owned by a Halling named Bulgo Snaketongue, a lesser race compared to the dominant human. At the humble height to a human's midsection, Bulgo lives tall and prideful. He is known to bring profit from any traveler who stumbled upon SARSOA, especially with his famous Snaketongue brew. He convinced travelers to drink his multiple pint-sized samples of his special brew. Afterwards, he looked after for their well-being and recommended them to stay as they will be quite intoxicated, only to spend more coin. As the inn prepared, the lumberjacks would go to the woods west of the village to hack down a tree for the carpenters to construct an altar and a stage south of the gravesite. The stage will have a single step in front of it, while the altar sat in the middle. It will be large enough for a single priest to present the ceremony. A red carpet went over the stage as purple and white flowers decorated the sides. The rest of the Sarsoans were assigned to clean the village. The task took 2 days. It would have taken longer if SARSOA had to obey the Clovoran draft. It mandated that all villages are to provide 30% of the population to serve in the royal army. SARSOA was an exception because it provided a substantial number of rations to the army every harvest. Why would the nobles wish to hinder such a workforce? Patrols and highwaymen escorted the wagons to pick up the food each season, the only time Clovoran authority would come to visit SARSOA.